Mr. Cam Robinson. How are you?
I'm doing well, fellas. How you guys doing?
Yeah,
Good.
pretty good. Looking forward to the Stanley Cup playoffs. Also wondering what the Canucks will say later this week, both players and management. More on that in a second, Cam. But first, want to start with you. It was late last week after we talked that we heard from Patrick Alvin, hoping that Elias Pettersson will stay behind for the summer and take advantage of all the resources available to him in Vancouver with the Canucks. I understand you got some info on that.
Yeah, so this had been kind of swirling in my brain for a little while, and so I started digging into some Swedish sources to find out what has been his training program. How has it looked over the years? How has it potentially changed? And so he used to train up north in Sweden, I believe at the Timrå facility there, where he played his Hockeyallsvenskan in the club he grew up playing through. Right after the draft, we talked about it a bunch, as he completely remade his shot. He added strength, he added speed, huge gains in those summer months. In early 2021, he moved from Eclipse Sports Management to CAA. And I believe he switched Swedish agents as well. They have obviously North American-based guys, and then they have guys based overseas as well. So the last 2 summers, he has moved to Stockholm to train. And from what I'm told from people in the industry, with a group that maybe isn't overly regarded back there as being like high-end people, guys who know how to really get these players ready for a full NHL season and to build and to have lasting effects. So I guess a number of those people over there that do that work kind of projected that he was going to struggle, especially in 2023, 24. And then he came out of the gates hot, and they're like, oh, okay, well, maybe it is working for him. And then we saw, right, post All-Star break, that's when the wheels started to fall off. And so maybe he wasn't conditioned well enough to last a lengthy season like that. And then it was kind of the redo again, where he was back in Stockholm, working with that same group. And then we saw what happened this year too. So I don't think staying in Vancouver is probably a realistic thing for him, just mostly because of, the lack of a practice facility and having him, having to bomb around to 8 rinks or wherever to UBC to try to find ice after working out at Rogers. So that hiccup there, but I think, and obviously the team is fully aware of this too, is that they need to find something that's going to work for him long term. Maybe being in Stockholm isn't the right city. Maybe it's too much glitz and glamour and noise and things going on like that. Maybe getting back up north to where his roots were, or maybe it's spending the summer with the Hughes family and working out and training with them and staying close to the captain. But something should change, hopefully, and I'm sure that management, as they discussed, is that they're hoping that maybe he stays in Vancouver. I think, like I mentioned, that is probably a long shot for him, just because it doesn't make all that much sense for him personally. But if he does stay in North America, I'm saying, go hang out with the Hughes brothers. If he goes back to Sweden, I think a real push to get him back with that original training group, or at least a different group maybe in Stockholm, is the ticket to finding a new level or refinding his old level.
Can't he go find whoever William Nylander trains with, or?
Well, I'm told that Jesper Bratt is kind of like the guy that you want to emulate in the summer months. Is he's one of these Swedes, and I'm sure William Nylander, his name just wasn't brought up to me, but Jesper Bratt is considered like, if you want to train and take steps, you train with Bratt, or you train with the guys that he trains with, or like him, because we've seen his evolution, right, from one of the last picks in the draft to being a genuine star in this league. He's going to hit 90 this year if he hasn't already. He could hit 100 himself, and he's not as skilled as an Elias Pettersson. And so he's had to work and grind and push for every inch that he's earned. So yeah, emulating a player like him. I'm sure Nylander has a great program going back home too, though.
So part of the summer with Brad, and then go visit Jack and Quinn, yep. And the Hughes. Yeah, it's a New Jersey Devil summer.
From what I've heard of Jim Hughes, I want Jim Hughes putting him through his paces every waking hour in the summer. See how he likes dem apples. Another saga. Tom Willander, what are you hearing there, Cam?
So, I mean, I saw Frank's report last night, Saravelli's report last night. I saw his amendment to it an hour later too. As of, I don't know, 8 minutes ago when I checked back in, completely false. Like not at all in the realm of what's happening right now. It is slow going on this negotiation. Like I mentioned, I think up to 2 weeks ago, and then it was kind of pushed back like, hey, they're not negotiating it because the season's not done. They've been negotiating for a while, and it's Schedule A bonuses. It seems like that is a real hiccup for them, a real sticking point for the club. And I mean, we're kind of getting to a point now where it's like, if they don't get him to Abbotsford in a hurry here, we're starting to destroy value a little bit. It's like an inflection point, is that he's losing development time. He's not skating. He's not getting better. And sure, some teams and players, their season's already done and they moved on to that off-season training program, but he's not looking to do that just yet. And so I fully expect this to get done, though, one way or another in the next day or two. And that one way or another is that they capitulate and they bend and they give him the Schedule A bonuses that, I don't think he's asking for the moon here. And again, I've mentioned this before, is that when a player hits his bonuses, you should be happy to pay him, like, especially for a rookie. It's like, that's a good thing for you. Yeah. But if they don't, I mean, I fully believe that returning to BU is a viable option for him. They're an education-based family, but also a return to Rogla of the SHL is also a potential for him too. He turned down a pro contract offer from them a couple years ago to go to BU, so he's not afraid to turn down pro offers. But a return to Sweden could absolutely be on the ticket for him too if things don't work out here in the next couple of days. So I think Vancouver, they're at a tipping point with this player, I think, and to nickel and dime him over some Schedule A bonuses, it's surprising, and I'm not sure, it's a little irrational, personally.
It's strange, but I think it's important to note, like, Abbotsford's schedule here. They're down in California for the 3 final regular season games. Then they're probably going to have the better part of a week before the playoffs begin. Like, I think there's still runway here, but I hear what you're saying, that his season is done. He's not got any team to play with at Boston University if he's back in school. But I think if there are people out there that are panicking, I think there's still plenty of runway for him to get here, to get to Abbotsford, and get into playoff games, if that's ultimately the way it all shakes down here.
There is. The clock for him to get to Abbotsford and still play it hasn't hit midnight yet. And I've maintained throughout this process that I believe it's going to get done, and he's going to get to Abbey and he's going to play playoff games. It's strange to me that it's taking them this long to get it done, especially, and for the player who is fully ready to come out too, like he's ready to turn pro, to watch, Scott LaChance and to watch Quinn Hudson, these guys that are coming out, his teammates that have already signed, that are less heralded. They're coming out, they're getting with their teams, they're seeing NHL games. It's tough for him, I'm sure, to be back in class and kind of back to business as usual without the training, without the practices, without the team to work with too. So I do believe that it will get done, just because I think it would be silly for Vancouver not to get it done, to have him go back for a third year. It just, they need to get their hands on him. They need to get him into the pro game. Yeah. He's ready for the pro game.
Let's play out this scenario. And Irv Gaffar was talking about this on Canucks Conversation yesterday with Quadrelli. Let's say he doesn't want to go to Abbotsford. Let's say he sees himself as an NHL player. Now, let's say he's willing to either go to Rogla next year or go back to BU for his junior third season. At that point, what would the worry be for the Vancouver Canucks? And at that point, does he become a trade chip this summer when you're hunting your second-line center?
I mean, sure, anyone can be a trade chip, and I think, since they built their blue line out a little bit this year, is that, they may be able to justify that now the right side on the blue line isn't as much of an issue as it was, although I still think that would be short-sighted to move him for a second-line center. But I'll just say is that I don't think that that's the case. I've been told, kind of in no unquestioned terms, that both sides are totally fine with him going to Abbotsford and starting in the AHL. And in fact, and I personally believe that too, is that it would be best for him to go down there and get that seasoning. I'm not sure he's ready to push for an NHL job next fall either. We'll see what his offseason of training does. Maybe he's ready. Maybe he's ready to do it, but I don't think it's a slam dunk. I think that it would be great for him to go get that experience in the A, and then come into camp, see where he is, and then go play 20 minutes a night on the top pair down there for a while too, before really rushing him into the lineup. So I don't think that that's a factor at all. But if, let's say, he does go back to BU or he goes to the SHL next year, you still hold his rights for another year. So it's not, again, we're not at a tipping point where you're going to lose him. But are you risking ostracizing this asset that you spent an 11th overall pick for? Are you teaching him that, hey, this isn't an organization that I can trust long-term, values me when they are nickel and diming me over some of these bonuses that I'm probably not even going to hit?
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, on to the players and prospects who are here. Ty Mueller, Kirill Kudryavtsev, Nikita Tolopilo. Cam, we all see them make their NHL debuts in the last 72 hours or so. What did you make of them?
Yeah, so Kudryavtsev, I've been kind of talking about this player throughout the year, is that I like him, right? I think he's very smart. He has one of the most active sticks, and I'm sure fans got to look at that a little bit last night too, even though he only played 12 or 13 minutes, is that he has a very, very active stick against the rush, little poke checks here and there, lifting sticks, working it in the defensive zone, can, make an outlet pass pretty cleanly. He showed that again last night too. I thought he was fine. I thought he didn't overextend himself in any direction. He played intelligent hockey like he's known for. He's not the biggest player, he's not the fastest player, he's not the heaviest player, but he just gets things done all over the ice, and that breeds really, really well for a future as a guy that can maybe complement a second pair one day potentially, or fill in that 5-hole or 6-hole or something like that. So I liked what I saw from him. Tolopilo, great story. Obviously 25, just the second Belarusian netminder ever to play in the NHL. And it took a near perfect shot on the power play from a star in Celebrini to beat him, right? So a heck of a night from him. Offers really great depth for the organization. We'll see if he actually has legitimate 1A, 1B potential here as it moves along, but at the very least, it offers that good depth. And Ty Mueller, he's another one, just a good story. He's got the wheels, he's got some jam to his game. He's going to be there battling for a bottom 6 job next season. And yeah, all this organizational depth that you can find in free agency or late in the draft, huge for a club.
What do you make of the Canucks' use of the farm system this year? 16 different guys have touched AHL and NHL ice in the organization. At the outset of the season, if I had told Patrick Alvin and Jim Rutherford that they were going to have 16 guys up from Abbotsford, I don't think they would have believed me, but they probably wouldn't have believed the way that the season has unfolded either. So I suppose when you take that into context, what have you made of that? Is 16 too many guys, or for a team that was, in the state of flux that the Canucks were, have they used their farm system effectively this year?
I honestly, I personally think that their farm system and how they've utilized them and how they developed them is probably the brightest point of this entire season. Is that I think that Manny Malhotra and the team down there has done an excellent job to get those players ready to play at that level and to play at the NHL level. We see them step up and they're maintaining their level of play. And then we see the holes getting filled in Abbotsford, and they're stepping up and playing in higher roles and succeeding as well too. So I think an A+ job down there for the baby Canucks. And then I do. Obviously, no NHL team wants to use that many AHL call-ups, but I think that they've handled them well. I think that they brought up players, given them a look, when kept them on a short leash when things weren't working well. Bam, back down, bring up someone new. And now that the season is over, and now you can give guys a little bit of a look down the stretch here. The more the merrier, right? It's just valuable experience. These games mean nothing. Get them, see what the pace is, what the level of play is, and now they can go train better in the offseason and come into camp a little better prepared to try to fight for a job or add that organizational depth. So I think they've handled it well, and I do think it's a success story.
Do they have between all the call-ups and some of the strides they've made, Linus Karlsson, Aatu Ratu, Max Sasson, and others, Cam, when you point forward to next season, along with the returnees, and of course we're talking about guys like Drew O'Connor and maybe Dakota Joshua, Kiefer Sherwood, if you want to slot them there. Do you see a ready-made bottom 6 for next year? Do you think there is little to no tinkering or additions needed to have a viable and productive playoff-level bottom 6 next year?
Yeah, I do. Like you mentioned, Joshua, Bluger, Sherwood, O'Connor, locks. I think Aatu Ratu is as close to a lock as you can have, unless he goes out and has a really big, poor summer and doesn't show up at all at camp. And then you've got, like you mentioned, you've got Karlsson and Bueller and Baines and Sasson and Aumann, and even Klimovic has developed into a really nice pro down there, and he's someone who could be again looked at to start seeing some NHL minutes next season too. So I do think they have the pieces on the roster, and they have the pieces coming up to have that bottom 6. I'm sure they'll go out and probably tinker a little bit, maybe add one piece, maybe it's a center or something like that, or maybe some just more camp battle guys, maybe someone on a PTO. So they do like Sanford or something like that. So I do think that they have the pieces in place already that they don't really need to add. And that's good, because business this summer will be on finding a couple of impact players, a high volume scorer or two if and when Brock leaves.
I just wonder if Rick Tocchet's back. I mean, this team isn't physically difficult to play against. I wonder if he on his wish list would like guys that were sort of cut from his cloth. That said, obviously it's higher up the lineup that has to be the priority, and they can't get stuck spending on, fairly one-dimensional guys. But I do think at the end of the day that, Rick Tocchet looks at this lineup, and a guy that played the game the way he did, I think he wouldn't mind just a little more stiffness in his lineup.
Well, maybe they can address both, hey, and go break the bank on Sam Bennett and make everybody happy.
Well, we'll see about that, Cam. Lastly, from me, our Surrey Mitsubishi poll question. If management cites injuries later this week in explaining what went wrong this season, is that a reason or an excuse for you, sir?
It's going to be difficult to come across as anything but an excuse, but at least it's a fair one. Like it is true they have suffered through some difficult injuries to some key players, but at the same time, it's like there should have been an expectation, or there should be an expectation that they could have been able to handle it a little bit better and maybe have some resiliency to get past it. And because on paper there was still enough skill in this team, and you had guys step up enough that they probably should have still been a playoff team. You look at Demko going down. Is Lankinen played well enough to be in a playoff spot, right? Pettersson, obviously that hole there is a bigger one and a more difficult one to fill, especially once they move JT. But it was more probably the depth, the guys that all did so well last year, not being able to replicate that. If they could have done that, that might have been enough to mitigate those injuries, but it didn't. So again, everything nearly went right for them last year, and then the things that went wrong, weren't helped out by anyone else really stepping up this year.
All right, buddy. Marvelous stuff. Thank you for the time here. We'll be into the offseason next week and casting our eye forward a little bit at the draft and free agency and elsewhere. So thank you for this, Cam, and we'll catch up next Tuesday.
Sounds good. Thanks, Ellis.